Hey,
Hello.
Jason, can you hear me, man?
Yes, what's up?
Nothing much. How's it going? So I subscribed to your site back in March,
Mhm.
and I've really been digging it. I kind of blew through things pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I came to this kind of by way of learning a little bit about Buddhism. And I'm really stoked to hear about your class on Buddhism. That sounds really cool. So I guess my question to you is, um, I guess it's sort of a meditation question.
Okay.
So I feel like I got pretty good at for lack of a better word, at meditating through Buddhist practices, kind of mindfulness stuff.
Okay.
And it's what I liked about it is that it's kind of reductive. It's like it's there's not a lot of added aspects to doing it. So
I
it feels really good, for me, for where I'm at. Excuse me. But through doing like first through studying like Hermeticism and magic, it seems like it's really additive. Like most of the time, it's about fixing an image in your mind and focusing on things and being really contemplative and additive stuff. So I guess to boil it down, my question would be like, what do you think? Do you think it's okay to practice both things at once? And do you have an opinion on which one is better, or is it just a thing where it's like whatever is good for you?
This is a really good and important question. So I'm going to do my best to be very specific about this and not try and give like, oh, well, just, do what feels right, uh,
Yeah.
which is what everyone says. But so my first question is what type were you doing what type of mindfulness were you doing? Was it in a lineage or was it, what exactly was
No, not really. I actually I started doing it like funny enough through like listening to like Sam Harris. I don't know how you feel about him, but
He's a
I started
Dzogchen.
checking
He's a Dzogchen guy,
the
right?
Dzogchen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. He's a smart guy. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
there's
love everything he says, but the Dzogchen stuff seems like pretty cool, and I'm glad that he's like putting it out there.
he offers a lot of good information about a lot of different things. People
Yeah,
have different views about um, his political beliefs. But
yeah, it's not all great.
everyone's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's like with anything. If you can learn something and take something from it, then do. It's like that's
yeah,
with all these things. It's like learn. Take what's useful and leave the rest. I mean, that's how we should be going about anything, even magic, even Buddhism.
yeah, yeah. That's good advice. I suppose it just feels like overload sometimes, especially trying to learn something simple like meditation, where it's hopefully it's something that's just it's subtractive, right?
Right. So can you describe exactly that when, because people say mindfulness and it can mean a lot of different things. So what exactly was the practice that you were doing?
Um, it's very much centered around like focusing on, you know, focusing attention upon itself, trying to, um, trying to turn attention upon itself, trying to, there's that saying he always comes back to where it's like, look for your head, try to find, like, you never actually see your head, you're always kind of focusing on the bigger picture, I guess.
Okay. So these are supplementary practices. They are types of meditations,
Hmm.
but those are closer to anything that is structured or guided like that tends to be a subsidiary practice or an early stage practice, right?
Yeah.
They're more like Zen koans to get somebody thinking in the path. But
Yeah.
the real practice of meditation tends to be without content. Now, the best form of mindfulness that I've come across is Vipassana, which is the original tradition, which
Mhm.
largely is about somatic awareness. It's about meditating on your own bodily sensations.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this.
Yeah, and I think it's profound. It is
Yeah.
profound, right? And they teach it in 10-day retreats. That said, I think that it's not a beginner practice, simply for the reason that it's hard enough, and I know from being a meditation teacher, it's hard enough for people just to sit and meditate for 5 minutes, let
Right.
alone half an hour a day. So then when you drop them into, okay, now for 10 hours, or excuse me, 10 days, that's too tall of an ask for, it's like somebody asking somebody to run a marathon. It's like asking somebody to go from, playing Fortnite to running a marathon. I mean, really. So I think that Vipassana, is something to be worked up to with daily asana, particularly holding daily asana practices, and it's because you need to be able to, in the Western, in yoga as it was taught by Crowley and Bennett, which I think is excellent. The first stage is just getting to the point where you can hold asana for an hour. That's hard. It takes months, it takes a long time. It's very painful and hard for people, but then once they get it like riding a bike, but the body has to be eased into it. The nervous system has to be eased into it. Whereas with Vipassana, the ask is basically doing that for 6 hours a day for 10 days. Right.
Yeah.
And anyways, so it's something to be worked up to. I think that, so in terms of the mindfulness world, that's the place to be, I think.
Yeah.
And the place not to be is anything that is conceptual. So much, and I'm just sharing from my own experience, so much of meditation is like party tricks to teach your mind to do. And yes, putting awareness on awareness, that's a core non-dual technique. That's excellent, but other things are largely, they can be teaching tools as part of the process. But, I always come back to the thing, as Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that created it.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
Yeah. Right. And as Christ said, it's like you cannot cast out demons with demons. So apply that to meditation. You can't use you're trying to turn off the damn thing using the thing. It doesn't work. For that reason, I think that the insight of, Vipassana, which is really the core the first turning of the Dharma. The first turning of the Dharma is, in my experience so far, and I'm happy to be shown to be wrong. I will let you know, because I will always want to learn more. The first turning of the Dharma is the most complete and the most hardcore, and it's pure. It's like it's a sword. There are no shamanic elements, and it is purely, basically dropping into pure. You turn off the mind using the through the lens of the body by dropping somatic awareness. Now that sounds trivial. It sounds like the type of thing that yoga teachers would say, like, oh, well, you just have to be more in your body and just get out of your head. Okay, thank you. People have been telling me this my whole life. But when you actually get the real technique, then you understand. So, and with Vipassana, when you're really in a serious, hardcore meditative tradition like that, they do tell you, do not mix it with other things.
Yeah.
Right? And that's important for serious meditation practice, because you're just stirring your mind up with more stuff.
Yeah.
So in terms of mixing it with Western magic, I mean, the whole framework of the AA, right, is the or shall we say, the greater reaches of Western magic.
Yeah.
Is the combination of these types of meditative techniques from the East with Western practices.
Right. So it's all encompassing in a way.
It is. Or more granular, I think, is a better way to put it. But I will also say that when it's taught that way, the Western tradition is reductive. It is, because, and even if you look further into some of Crowley's writing, where it's talking about, you're going through the Sephirah, but it's not to add things to yourself. It's to destroy the Sephirah. It's to master and then remove that from you. It's to see through each individual veil. It's to see through each individual veil of reality. So, whereas, right? So that's what it is. With the Eastern traditions, the difference between the Western traditions and the Eastern traditions, or just to overgeneralize, is the Eastern traditions just go straight to the thing. It's like you go straight to Kether, do not pass go, do not collect $200.
Yeah.
Whereas the the Western tradition provides a very detailed step-by-step map for all the intermediary stages between here and there.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, it can be more suited for Western people. You have to remember that the Eastern traditions, particularly Buddhism and the early, not so much Hinduism, but particularly Buddhism, came out of a time where people had nothing. They were desperate. They had nothing to do but sit all day long, and life was suffering.
Yeah.
And in a really profound way, as it still is there, and in many other parts of the world. So it comes out of a different life experience.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's funny that that the way that it's coming back around now is because people are pretty desperate for meaning in their lives, right? Like the way that it's approaching Western society now is so different than where it came from. It's very bizarre, but I mean, it still holds true, I suppose, and it's really helpful for people.
It's very helpful. I mean, this is my observation when I spent a lot of time over in India and Nepal, is that this is a bit glib, but and then came back here and tried to reconcile my experiences there with here.
Right.
Which is that in that part of the world, people, they have the whole universe. They have their souls. They have meaning. They have connection. They have connection to people around them. They have a sense of being. When you're there, it's like everyone is immersed in a sense of profound, sacred meaning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. Now, not in some of the more technical, India is becoming different, but certainly in Nepal still, if, it's not completely destroyed by Maoism, and China, but in these parts of the world, people, they are rich internally, but they have nothing. They're desperately poor. They have nothing. I mean, living on, we're talking about a part of the world where people disfigure child beggars so that they will make more money. That's poverty, right? And
yeah,
poverty,
it's fucked up.
Well, as Gandhi observed, poverty is the truest form of violence, the most severe form of violence, because it is intergenerational, and from it all evils proceed in a way. Lack of money, in a sense, can be the root of all evil.
Yeah.
But then to come back to America and see, then you can contrast that with America or the West or England or Europe. You contrast that with here, and people have obscene wealth. It's just like, oh, my laptop broke, I'll buy another one. It's like, like a new flat screen TV every year. It's like they have everything, and yet they still think they're poor somehow. People have obscene wealth. I remember going even to some of the worst areas of LA when I came back, and it looked like mansions compared to India. It was like, these people are so rich in comparison, right? So, yet everyone here is still miserable and is poor inside. They feel,
and we're all sort of supporting that lie to each other, right? Like we're all sort of supporting that. We need more. We need to have more. It's like it's such an odd place. It's such an odd perspective place to be coming from. To be like to have it all and to be simultaneously dissatisfied. But such is life, I guess. Such is life in America.
Well, that's one way it can be, right? And that's certainly is, but hey, we're hippies, man. We're supposed to be different, right? I think that the ideal is and always has been to combine the two, right? Because the ability of Western people to manipulate matter, right, which is real magic, and to bring wealth and to bring wealth to some of these poor parts of the world, and combined with the inner, technologies of sacred meaning. I mean, that's the ideal, right? Yeah. That's what we want. So, and so in terms of mixing, we're all inevitably going to mix. I think if you're in some serious situation like a retreat, you definitely should not. In terms of what is better, I don't think what I can share is my own perspective, which is I'm continually attempting to recombine and refine both of them, right? And that's how what I teach, right? What I teach is, so much of what I teach is I use Western magic, but I cut through it.
Yeah.
And I use the not just, I won't just say Eastern techniques, but, and also I use Western rationality, in regards to the earlier question, because we need to cut through these things to what's really real and and we can clearly summarize this by saying, And this is something Crowley was quite clear on. Thanks to Alan Bennett, which is, if we're going to summarize this, like the goal, just keep the goal in mind, right?
Yeah.
What you're actually trying to do.
Right.
And
don't just be doing magic for the sake of doing magic. Like, and that's what I dug about your supercharger course, where that was very just like, oh, there's a thing that I want to do. And every morning I would wake up and do that thing. It was like, I wasn't just, and I think I sort of have gotten into the loop of like, oh, I'm just like studying magic because it's cool. And it's very interesting to me. But yeah, I guess I get what you're saying, is sort of keep a goal in mind all the time anyway.
Right. And the goal for both is basically mastering your mind.
Yeah.
Turning the mind off. Right. So one of the great things about Western magic, for instance, is it has all this technology for the, dealing with the astral.
Yeah.
As we've talked about in many of the previous office hours. So, you can have hallucinations on demand, any type you want. But in that, you are also able to see through it and control it and move past it in a way that is much more sophisticated than the Eastern traditions, where the Eastern traditions just put a blanket prohibition on it, essentially, and say, oh, no cities, no, avoid the astral, just meditate when it all turns off. Well, you can do it that way, but if you're reacting in fear to something, then it still has power over you. So Western magic allows all these tools for essentially being in control of that. So,
and I'm an artist, I'm a musician. So what I really dug about it was like, this is stuff I've been doing my whole life. And this is great because it's language to talk about it and to, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's exactly right. I think that magic largely is a language for talking about these aspects of life that most people try to ignore.
Yeah.
And these are like programming languages also. So,
well, that's cool. You definitely answered my question. I don't want to take up all your time. I'm sure other people have questions too, but that's rad. I'm going to check out the Vipassana stuff, and I'll stay the course with a goal in mind.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jason. It's awesome to talk to you, man.
You too.
Yeah.
All right. Hang in there.
Okay. I will.